Hey, you geeks! Apparently, when Amazon said that the episode is airing on the 13th, they may have actually meant that for my local time, it was airing at 8 p.m. the night before, because time zones. So, my production schedule has currently hit the absolute fan, and I'm sorry. Moving forward, I will try to get videos done in a timely manner, giving my patrons some time for previewing, but the algorithm weaves as the algorithm wills, and as a small channel, I have to try and hit the wave lest none of you guys actually have the chance to see my videos. Also, I would love to hear your thoughts and insights down in the comments, not just because it would help this video grow, but also to help me form my own opinions about the season moving forward. As you will hear, about a third of this review came about because I talked with my reading buddy and got his insights as well as my own. And I love to hear from you guys, so please chatter away, just chatter. Thank you! Now for my thoughts on the actual content of Amazon's Wheel of Time Season 3, Episodes 2 and 3. Together, I say the most important plot line felt like it spanned those two episodes in one long cohesive arc, with other lesser plot lines weaving in and out as the wheel wills. So I'm just going to take all of those plot lines together and rank them from least enjoyable to most for my review today. Now, I want to be clear that as I go into nitpick, complain, and otherwise review these episodes, this show has finally passed the threshold where we are getting consistent adaptation of recognizable book scenes. And even though I'm going to complain that, the book was better, basically, I would still rather have a bad adaptation of a book scene than a Amazon reimagining like we got in season 1 with Tuam's mill scene instead of Four Kings. Like, that is all down here, whereas the baseline of these two episodes is much higher. But these constructive criticisms are coming from a place of general satisfaction and not grasping for positive straws in an otherwise burning building. Mixing metaphors there. Last important note here, spoiler warning through the end of book 5, like the very end of book 5, I feel like this episode set up a lot of stuff to that end, and so I'm going to spoil it when I talk about how I think they did. The Lion Throne. The episode 2 cold open felt tonally jarring. Like, the first 2 seasons of The Wheel of Time had tried to avoid being compared to Game of Thrones by, avoiding Camelin like the plague. So now that we arrive at Camelin, it felt like they just said, the heck with this, let's lampshade the heck out of these Game of Thrones similarities and just go for the grit and the gore and the shock factor. And to top it all off, Lord Gabriel gives a long may he reign toast to himself, because of course he did. This lampshading of Game of Thrones similarities is probably the only thing in these episodes that feel like a true betrayal of Robert Jordan's vision. Since The Eye of the World came out almost a decade before George R.R. Martin's Game of Thrones, it's pretty clear that The Wheel of Time influenced, in some ways, The Song of Ice and Fire. But due to the extended publishing time it took to get through, or getting through, these series, these books have always kind of coexisted and have influenced and been distinguished from each other. So when Robert Jordan sat down to write the later books of The Wheel of Time, especially the Camelin court drama, he could have leaned into the darker, grimmer world as imagined by Martin, but he didn't. he kept it Arthurian and pure with a little bit of backstabbing politics on the side, but overall, Morghese was a just queen. So when the show decided to add a lot more knives and blood and the court of Camelin, it's like they took all of Robert Jordan's years of world building and crafting to be distinct from Game of Thrones and just throw it away. This feels messy to me. And I mean, it's nowhere near as bad as season 1 and the whole who is the dragon plot, but we're getting to a higher standard now, and betrayals like this are going to be less tolerated by me. Now, doing the numbers, it does establish a lot of good, important plot points for the show moving forward. Elida is ruthless. Camelin is prone to civil war when their queen dies and the daughter heir disappears. Oh, Tigraine was a daughter heir of Andor, and then she disappeared 20 years ago. Odd. So yeah, all of these strings are getting established very well, very intensely, I should say, but it does not land right for me. Now, Elaine's episode 2 plot of should she be loyal to the Tower or to Camelin felt like good character drama, and I was originally writing Morghese's kind of quick 180 at the end of the episode to accept her daughter's decision as excellent writing because Lord Gabriel was not in the room when she made that decision, but based on what came next in episode 3 in Perrin's arc, I'm now wondering if that was more sheer dumb luck. So that was my least favorite plotline, even though it still had moments that I genuinely enjoyed. Perrin. Now, Perrin's arc seems to already be hobbled by situation beyond the four corners of the screen. Firstly, it seems like Tam al'Thor is for season 3.
Sir not appearing in this film.
While I'm still rather shocked at this turn of events, I was starting to preemptively dread it after episode 1 came out, where I really sat down and noticed that Maxim was getting a lot of trailer and poster time as a key part of the Two Rivers arc, but Tam wasn't. Now, it's not like they were showing Natty Cawthon in these previews or posters either, so I had been content to believe that because they brought back Tam and Natty for Nynaeve's accepted test, I assumed to remind the viewers that these two people will be important next season. Now, Natty is getting screen time, and Tam is getting name dropped. This has problems for future books, but in this episode, we had the problem of Marin Al'Vere being Marin Al'Vere in her first scene, and then having to do a random spontaneous 180 to do the pep talk that was done by Tam in the books. There was something about her version of "We're Two Rivers Folks Stick Together" speech that was vaguely reminiscent of the Rings of Power murder hobbits' "We Stick Together" speech, which was not a pleasant comparison. Now, my reading buddy pointed out that the murder hobbits should have had that speech at the beginning of their arc and then not abandon anyone, which is what the Two Rivers did. So, positive direction there, but it still just sat really weird. Lastly, in my nitpicks of Perrin's arc, the editing and sense of time passage was not doing him any favors. He has like 5 scenes that are all vaguely daylight and then like an evening shot, and it just felt like he was in the longest day ever while other characters were off spending days walking to the waste. So with that disconnect, it was kind of hard to get really grounded in his world. But on the positive side, his world now includes Fael, who is funny with the Mandarb quip, and the preeminent hunter for the horn, Lord Luke, has arrived, a bit shabbier than I would have expected, but we're okay with this. He is here to save the two rivers, as we all know he totally will. And I'm even willing to admit that spending some time to focus on Alana's grief of losing a warder is a good decision, not only coming from the show's perspective, where we've really gotten to know what's-his-name last season.
Well, God bless what's-his-name.
But also from the book's perspective, we know that Alana is moving towards a decision that is going to mess with, hopefully, the Dragon Reborn himself, moving all the way forward to the last battle, and that it comes right out of nowhere, seemingly, in the books. Like, this is an area the show is free to explore, and I'm happy they're doing it. I wish they hadn't done it under the apple blossoms, but they did it, and we're good with that. Rand and the Aiel. This arc breaks the threshold of me having more positive things to say about it than negative. Negative? You know how I just gushed over the magic wielder choreography for episode 1? The Aiel really need a choreographer. Like this, the extra was running in like this. It's like, that's not how the Aiel walk. And I don't believe Rhubarc could actually off a person in this turning of the wheel, which is unfortunate. Even though Rand's arc in this episode isn't the most exciting, it still stands up to even the more exciting ones because the show is clearly trying to shove as much exposition into his journey, along with world building authentically, on his way. We get Tinker dynamics, we get Shido dynamics, we get Lanfear trying to drive a wedge between Egwene and Rand and seemingly succeed. We do see that Rand isn't totally two-timing Lanfear and Egwene, but this is a very fine line that I'm sure Lanfear is going to push later in the season with appropriate dramatic results. Now, when we do meet the Aiel, it seems like the Wise Ones are slightly more communicative than they were in the books, just picking up random strays like Melindra off-screen, even though Borderlanders do get Aiel respect. They still, I don't think, would adopt them, not to mention Lan being a man in the Wise One's sweat tent was weird, not because they're skittish about nudity, but because he's a man. I love that the show is finally tapping into Lan's role, not just as Moraine's warder, but as the last king of the Melchior, a people dispersed, but also sworn to perpetually fight the shadow. This is important to Lan's character, and I love that we're going to get an arc finally exploring this. And I understand how it fits with Melindra's book character, who is always eager for Matt to get out of the dragon's shadow and stand on his own. So her pushing Matt to become his own man transfers nicely to her pushing Lan to become the king she sees inside.
King I see inside.
However, they gave her the Golden Crane Flies for Tarmin Guidance speech, and that hit me on such a visceral level that I wanted to smack someone, preferably the person who had the idea. Not really, I'm sure you're a wonderful human being, but oh geez. I think that this is the show playing with the true fire in Robert Jordan's writing and misfiring entirely, but since they are playing with the right ingredients now, I'm happy, but also you wound me and you need to stop. Red Aja. Now, spending some quality time with the mean girls of the tower and seeing Elida manipulate them and talk to Min about her foresight ability are all really smooth ways of catching us up on what they left out of the last 2 seasons. Now that the Red Aja has been officially told that they cannot sit with the rest of the Ajas,
You can't sit with us!
we just know that they're gonna burn the place to the ground, and I am all here for that. The Wonder Girls. Now, I can't complain that Nynaeve got Matt into the tower by taking him to see the Yellows, so although it wasn't what I was hoping for this episode, it was nice! Then they swiftly turn into Nynaeve and Elaine doing pretty seamlessly interchanging their hunt for the Black Aja antics, both from the beginning of The Dragon Reborn and The Shadow Rising. The Bolt, the Gray Man, the helpful sister in the hall, this time it's Varen, but, the level of distrust on top of them in the show now doing some legit detective work and Nynaeve coming to this realization because of her close relationship with Leandrin. I do think that it's a Targaryen level coincidence that Leandrin bore her son in Tanchico and that the male item is also in Tanchico. But since there are plenty of Targaryen running around this show, I'm willing to let the coincidence stand. Dealing with Nynaeve's block, my reading buddy and I discussed how she was not angered by her friends in imminent peril in the season 2 finale. And she was not angered by herself in imminent peril in the season 3 premiere. So what's left is Leandrin. So we're thinking that Moghedien is going to kill Leandrin, and that is what it'll finally spur Nynaeve to get angry and find her crutch for overcoming her block. Now, I'm actually pretty okay with the show going down this route, especially if the show gives Leandrin Lord Ingtar's role from Book 2. Apparently, they had filmed the Ingtar scene, but show-only fans were like, who is this guy? Leandrin, we all know and love to hate. So seeing her be possibly redeemed to the light would make her death very compelling. Now, Leandrin has been so compelling over these past 3 seasons, while we know her book timeline is running short of her doing anything important. So it seems fitting that the show will give her a big send-off this season, and that will be what finally spurs Nynaeve to getting angry. Forsaken. We get an early Forsaken social, and it's so great. Like, the constant infighting for pecking order, name dropping of other Forsaken who may not be cast yet, but the show's now promising that we will see them. We also hear the Nameless dropped, and we see what Age of Wonders weaving looked like with the little hand gestures rather than the big extravagant things that the Aes Sedai and Rand have been doing for the past 2 seasons. The scene was so great for all those reasons, while also establishing the wheel covering itself that although I thought it was weird and inefficient for Rand to just hoof it himself into the Aiel waste, the Forsaken had no idea where he was, and my reading buddy pointed out that is kind of authentic to the Forsaken in the books, as they could not imagine just walking off away from your city or your army to go do something. So whenever Rand did that, they also didn't know where he was. Matt. As per usual for a later Wheel of Time book, Matrim Coffin's character arc saves the day. I am so glad Swan showed up to talk some sense into the lad. I guess he could think that bragging about the horn was a-okay, since the show casually reminded us that he didn't know that it was tied to him and that everyone would be out to kill him from now on. So glad Swan Sanche clarified that, as well as giving him her inspirational speech, slightly manipulative speech. Like, the writing is on the wall of Swan's downfall, but it was nice to see her, still be able to advise a Tarviran and take him under her wing for as long as it lasts. Though even before that, once Galad and Gawain started their shirtless fight scene, as a straight female, I do appreciate the male form. But what is truly exciting to me about that scene is that it was from the books, and I was amped to see what Matt would do next. And I was like, he's walking away. No, he can't leave. And I was waiting and waiting, and the show kept on building and building, Matt getting annoyed by Gawain and Galad's antics. Galad interfering so chivalrously with Matt, trying to get his female friends who were being obtuse and unhelpful to be helpful and straightforward with him. And so all of these little slights just building it up until the perfect payoff of the quarterstaff fight scene. I have chef kissed far too many times already in my review of this season, so just everything. It was great. And cherry on top is Min's vision that confirmed Matt is destined for a red door frame and to be hung. I had hoped that we would get to see these 2 episodes, but the show is telling me they haven't forgotten. They will pay it off. Matt's arc here is what I think the show can be at its best. Taking a scene from the book and maybe changing it slightly so that we can have other narrative build up to the payoff that book fans know and want, and show fans don't know how much they need this, and to see it pay off for everyone in spectacular fashion. This is the show at its best, and I want them to do this now for every single character arc. I finally have faith that I think they can. So, there is my mostly positive review of Wheel of Time Season 3, Episodes 2 and 3. Please like, share, and subscribe if you want to see more. Thanks for watching. Bye!